Hi friends, it's Terry Stewart, independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator located in the U.S. in Central Maryland. Welcome to the December bundle bonus video. This month, as a gift, we have two bundles that qualify for the bundle bonus. They are the Loveliest Tree, which I'm using today, and the Adventurous Sky, which some other demonstrators are participating with. If you're interested in knowing more about the bundle bonus, head over to my blog. The link is in the description below with all the details. Let's get started. So the Loveliest Tree is the bundle I am using for the bundle bonus this month. And I have shared in the past why I like this bundle. This tree reminds me of a stamp set that Stampin' Up! Had for over 20 years. It was called Lovely as a Tree, and it had several images of trees, and one of them looked very similar to this. And I just really love that card because you can make sympathy cards, masculine cards, fall cards. It was just very versatile. And then this set comes with sentiments that I would use frequently: a thank you, congratulations, happy birthday, and a sympathy card. The bundle includes dies that can cut out the image of this tree plus some other images. It does a branchless tree trunk. You can add some greenage with this die. It has some individual leaves as well as a die to cut out this clump of leaves. Now I'm pairing it today with the Birch Wood 3D embossing folder. So let me show you my project before we get started. Here it is. So there's the embossing from the Birch Wood 3D. I've used some paper from the Nests of Winter DSP pack. I've used a heartfelt sympathy sentiment, but I'm going to change it up. In this card, we're actually going to do a birthday card because I think it makes a great masculine birthday card. And here's the tree. Now I'm going to show you the Emboss Resist technique. So we're going to emboss with clear, add some inks, sponge daub some inks on, and then cut out the tree. Here are the supplies I'm going to be using: a scrap of basic white cardstock, a piece of basic white cardstock, and a piece of granite gray, and a piece of basic white, and a piece of that DSP, the Nests of Winter. Now the supply list, along with the cutting measurements and photos of this project as well as others in the bundle bonus December 2024, will all be listed. So I'll try to give you the measurements, but really get that PDF. Get with the demonstrator that you work with. If she participates in the bundle bonus, you buy the bundle and you get the bonus, which is the PDF with projects, pictures of the projects, supply list, cutting measurements, and a hot link to a video like mine if there are videos. Okay, so let me see if I can remember what the measurements are. This is a half sheet of granite gray. It's 5.5 by 8.5 inches, scored at 4.25 inches. For my metric friends, that'd be 21 inches by 14.9 centimeters. This piece of basic white is the inside liner, is 4 by 5.25 inches. Metric, that would be 10 by 14.4 centimeters. Same size for this piece of DSP. This piece of granite gray is 2.25 inches by 4 inches. I think it was I want to say 5.8 centimeters by 10 centimeters. And then this piece of basic white is 7/8 of an inch, and you use about 2 inches or so. It doesn't really matter how long it is because we're going to chop it. And for my metric friends, let me see. That is about 2.5 centimeters, and like again, The length doesn't matter because we're going to cut that off. So let's start with stamping my birthday sentiment. So I am going to make this one a birthday, doing a little bit different. And I use basic gray ink. So I ink this up, and I'm not going to stamp right on the edge. I'm going to stamp in a little bit because I do want to cut a diagonal sentiment. Just to make sure you can see this. This is what I'm going to be stamping this image. Except it's going to be happy birthday. Perfect. So that is done. Although I think I stamped on the inside. Let me see. Yes, I put those little leaves. So let me get this piece out. So there I have my leaf image on the block. Ink this up. Make sure we can see what's going on here. And I'm going to do a little bit of several clumps of leaves. There we go. That's all the stamping with basic gray. Set this aside, set that aside, and now we can do our Emboss Resist technique. So I'm going to bring in my, so for the Emboss Resist technique, I'm using the Additions Kit, Embossing Additions Kit. Comes with an embossing buddy, reverse tweezers, a brush, and this cool little tray. So I'm going to start with my embossing buddy, and this takes out the static on the paper, and when we use ink, the embossing powder will only stick where the ink is now. It won't have any extra pieces on the paper. And we're going to use Versamark. Now Versamark is a watermark stamp, so it doesn't dry quickly, and that's why we can stick the powder to it. So water-based inks, or most inks in Stampin' Up, are water-based and they evaporate within seconds. This watermark ink doesn't, and so we can use that to our advantage when stamping, because we can put the embossing powder. Now because this is the larger stamp, I'm going to bring my ink pad right to my stamp, and that way I can make sure I get good coverage. So ink this up. Sorry the camera's jiggling. Now because it's clear on white, we are not going to be able to see the image, but we know it's there. And because this is not water-based and it is a thicker ink, usually I would just press for 3 seconds, but I'm going to hold it maybe for 10 seconds just to give that ink time to transfer. There we go. So as I said, you can barely make out the image. So now we're going to use our clear embossing powder. Now this is old packaging. We now have the Wow powders, and I'm looking forward to getting them because I've heard, or the word on the street is, that they are very fine powder and they stick so well. So maybe you can see now the powder. This little spot there I missed. So the image is easier to see once the powder sticks to it. So that's a benefit of this ink, that watermark ink not being water. It doesn't dry as quickly. So now, put that away. We're going to use our reverse tweezers to hold this. I'm going to start my heat gun off camera. Okay, we'll just let it sit there for a minute. Let it heat up. And it might look like a hair dryer, but it is not. It gets up to 450 degrees so it's very hot. So we're going to come close to the image but not touch it. And then as the powder turns shiny, we'll move the image. If you leave it in one spot too much, once the powder has melted, you run the risk of burning the embossing. So now our embossing is complete. We'll just set that aside for a few seconds and it will dry. Because we did use the embossing, the Versamark on this, the chamois will not take it off. You need some something soapy to take it off. So I have my Stampin' Scrub here, and I'm going to open that. Let's move this out so it can dry. It's probably all cooled down now. And I'm going to take some Stampin' Mist directly to my stamp and scrub it clean. And this will remove the Versamark. And then there's a dry side. And now you can see that the Versamark, it's not tacky and it's clean. Ready for my next time I use it. So for our Emboss Resist technique, we're going to use sponge daubers to daub on some color. So I have two here, and we're going to be using numerous ink pads. So for the blues, we're going to start with Balmy Blue, Boho Blue, and then Misty Moonlight. And then for the trunk, we'll use Pecan Pie. So my brown dauber, and I have daubers for color families, and although this is stained, it is clean, and I just use this for blues. So I'm going to pick up some Balmy Blue, and I'm just going to go over the clear embossing and add some blue. Okay. And moving on to Boho Blue. And I'm just layering the color on. Kind of in a swirly pattern. And staying really to the outside of the tree. And now the darkest color, Misty Moonlight. I am not changing daubers. I'm just moving on with the next color, because we're getting darker, not lighter. And then just going around in swirly motions. And this will give a variety of colors to our tree leaves. And you want to make sure you get all the way to the edges where the tree is, so you can see the variety of leaves. We're done with the blues, and we're going to move on to the Pecan Pie for the tree trunk and branches. So pick up a little bit of Pecan Pie and then go over the tree trunk and the base of the tree so we can see that. And so with the embossing, the clear embossing, it's resisting the ink, and the more you go over it, the more it gets down into the nooks and crannies, and the details of the branches and the tree trunk come through. And now that we've put the ink, it's resisting where the embossing is. So the ink is laying on top of the clear embossing, and now I'm going to bring it in a tissue and rub it, and as I rub it, that ink gets picked up by the paper tissue and is removed from on top of the embossing, which is resisting it. So the colors really come through. So there's the blue ink that's coming off the top of the embossing. Now we're going to move down to this pecan pie part, the tree trunk, and it's picking up that. So it really pops. And that's the Emboss Resist technique. Now, so I'm going to take my die from the coordinating die set, the Loveliest Tree, and I'm going to take this to my embossing machine and run that through, die cut it out. And now we've die cutted the tree. And while I have my embossing machine out, we're going to do the embossing of the Birch Wood 3D. A small piece of gray granite. And I'm going to place it in the folder, line up the left edge with this line near the logo. And then we're going to remove these plates, the plate number 2 and our both number 3 plates are removed. And that leaves our base plate. We take our embossing folder with the hinge going in, and with our plate number 4 for 3D embossing, lay that on top and run that through. And then our 3D embossing is complete. So I'm back from my cut and emboss machine. I've die cutted my tree, and I embossed my piece of gray granite. Now we can start assembling. We start with my card base. And this is scored in half, and I'm just going to crisp up that score line with my bone folder. Lay this piece of DSP, and then this piece of gray granite. The tree will go there. We need to cut our sentiment. And here's a trick. I'm going to cut it at an angle, like so. And then this piece can be used as a guide on the other side. So I have this distance here, which is about 1/8 of an inch or point or 3 millimeters. So I want to get that on the other side of the sentiment. So using this as a guide, it will be at the same angle. And there's our happy birthday sentiment. And now I have the Baker's Twine Essentials pack, which I use black for the sending heartfelt sympathy. But I'm going to use the gray granite. So let's set this aside for a minute. And I wrapped this around twice and tied a knot. So once, twice. And let me grab my snips and cut this. There we go. And pull this. There we go. And just tie a simple knot. My friend Chris talks about square knots. So right over left. Let's see if I can do this. There we go. And then left over right. And that will give us a square knot. It should lay relatively flat. All right. And now we can adhere this DSP that has the Baker's Twine over it. And I like to use liquid glue. Just feel like it gives me, I don't have to be so committed when I put it down. There's a moment or two that you can use some wiggle room if it's not straight when you first lay it down. Okay. Trying to make sure that this Baker's Twine at the bottom is kind of somewhat level. And now we can put our emboss piece. Now this, because it's a 3D emboss, it has some deep crevices, so I'm going to make sure I use some extra glue. So it really adheres. And just gonna eyeball maybe just above that bird so that bird is peeking out. Let's straighten this up. And then for the tree, we're gonna adhere that using some mini dimensionals. And I'm gonna cut some personalized shapes. So go all the way around. When you heat emboss, sometimes it will warp the cardstock, and that's why I'm going to use several dimensionals to help it lay flat. And then for this tree trunk down here, I'm going to use some of the edging. And then these will be kind of custom made dimensionals to help support that tree trunk. And when I lay this, I want to make sure I have about the same distance right on the right side and the left side. Remove all these covers. And then once all the covers are removed, we're ready to secure it to our card front. And so all those dimensionals help it flatten out. And then for our happy birthday, I'm going to put them at the top and the bottom so that it can straddle the baker's twine. And then the baker's twine can go right between these rows. It looks about right. Now we can adhere our inside. I tend not to put greetings on the inside. I leave them blank. That way I can personalize them when I go to put them in the mail or to give them away. Because I just like a personalized note inside. And then center, top, bottom, left, right. And then the last little bit is just to trim up the baker's twine with our snips. And there is our Emboss Resist card with the Birch Wood 3D embossing and the Nests of Winter DSP. So which do you prefer? A sympathy card or masculine birthday card? Leave a comment below and let me know. Please like and subscribe to my channel so you'll be notified every time I bring you a new fun stamping project. Until next time, remember, stamping is fun. Bye.